Am I live? I'm live. Wow, look at this. This is unbelievable. Thank you so much for coming out to support the next President of the United States, Nikki Haley. I got to tell you, this is just unbelievable. When I was called and asked to introduce her this evening, I tell you what, I just didn't know what to do with myself. It's just amazing. You know, I am the son of a farmer, the son of a farming family from Laconia, New Hampshire, from Guilford, New Hampshire, right? And I have the honor and distinction of standing here in front of you and introducing the next President of the United States, someone that I have come to know and come to love. Both Sharon and I are providing this endorsement. My wife, Sharon, we've been married for 34 years. She has raised our children. She is a strong woman. And without strong women in our lives, we just can't be successful. We cannot. And I got to tell you, my mom and dad are up there looking down and they're saying, holy moly, how did this happen? I got teachers rolling over in their graves going, we didn't expect him to even get out of 12th grade of high school. And here he is in the state of New Hampshire, in historic Exeter, in the same area and place that our first president came through, that the leader of the Republican Party, Abraham Lincoln, came and spoke, and many great things happened. And here I am with this opportunity. This is the American dream. And we have no better representation of the American dream than Nikki Haley. The daughter of legal immigrants who came to this country, well educated, and came here and got an education here and made a life for themselves with their family. And then Nikki Haley grows up in that family and she becomes a public servant and she lives her life with honor and character and integrity and accountability and responsibility. The state legislature in South Carolina, then governor, then ambassador of the United Nations, where she did unprecedented things, where she showed her strength as an ambassador to the United States, where she stood up to China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, where she called them out on all the bad things that they do. And then as governor, her state earned the reputation as the beast of the Southeast when it came to economic prosperity, fiscal responsibility, and the safety and security of South Carolinians, and set the example for other states in America to do the same thing, and did things to protect our vote, did things to protect our children, did things to protect our immigration laws. The same thing that's going to be required of her as President of the United States. People are saying, who is Nikki Haley? Well, I'll tell you who Nikki Haley is. She's an intelligent, strong woman who is in the right place at the right time to lead this great nation, to save this great nation, to bring this great nation back to the respect and honor that it deserves. But she can't do it alone. And I will tell you that the fact that she started her campaign here in New Hampshire in a town hall is indicative of how she feels about Americans and Granite Staters. This is quintessential New Hampshire. This is the way it should be. Coffee breath close with your elected officials and those that want to serve you. There is no better opportunity than to get to know her. She's a mom. She's a dedicated wife. Her husband is a patriot and served our country in the military and in Afghanistan. Come on. That's the type of person that we want leading this country. That's the type of a person of compassion, a person that understands people, that has empathy, a person that is accountable, responsible, has character and integrity over power and money, that wants to serve you and not special interest lobbyists and the political wealthy elite. You, the people of this great nation. That's what she wants to do. And that's why I love her. That's why I have come to respect her. That's why I would do anything to ensure and support her in every way. So if you supported me, and even if you didn't support me, I am asking you to support her. She is everyone's candidate. I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent. She doesn't see you that way. She sees you as an American. She sees you as someone that she wants to serve. That's the difference. That is the difference. I know. I got to know and talk to many, many national leaders. And she's the one that both my wife and I said, wow, if she runs for president, she's going to have our full support. Whatever that means and whatever that gets you, ma'am. So, I don't know what else to say. She's going to do the right thing for us. She's going to serve us. She's going to bring back the respect, change, leadership that we need. She has the experience. She has the knowledge. She's a problem solver. She's optimistic. Yes, we have problems, but they're not insurmountable. We can fix them together. She wants to do that with you. That's the big difference. She's going to work for you. She doesn't expect you to work for her. She's going to work for you. And we're going to get this done together so that this beautiful young lady right here can stand and sit in the same place as Nikki Haley 30 years from now. Because it's about our children and grandchildren, and we got to start doing something now. So without any further ado, I humbly and with utmost respect present to you the next President of the United States, Nikki Haley. Let's go! Woo! All right. Thank you. Right here.
Thank you. It's great to be here in Exeter, and I love that we've just packed the house. We've got standing room only, and I love that, so thank you very much. You know, I have to say, you have a beautiful state. You have an even more beautiful motto, to live free or die. But there is no one that encompasses that more than General Don Bolduc, truly. He has fought for us. He served 10 times in Afghanistan. Now, as a military spouse, knowing how hard one time for my husband in Afghanistan is, we all owe him and every veteran in this country a massive debt of gratitude. Please help me thank General Bolduc again. So I want to tell you a little bit about me. The first thing you know when you got here is you heard some music. I am a big fan of music, so I hope they played the right music for you. The second thing is I just want to tell you about who I am. I was born and raised in a small rural town in South Carolina, 2,500 people, 2 stoplights. You couldn't think about doing something wrong without somebody telling your mom. We were the only Indian family in that small southern town. We weren't white enough to be white. We weren't black enough to be black. And I remember when I would get teased on the playground and I would come home and my mom would say, your job is not to show them how you're different. Your job is to show them how you're similar. And even though that town didn't know who we were, what we were, or why we were there, my parents knew. My parents knew why we were there, because they left wealthy lifestyles in India to start all back over in the best country in the world. And there was never a day that my parents didn't remind my brothers and my sister and me that even on our worst day, we are blessed to live in America. So as I was growing up in that town, my father was a professor. My mother was a school teacher. And she decided that she loved in America people pass things down to their kids. So she wanted to be able to do the same thing. So she started a small business out of the living room of our home. And 30 plus years later, it was a very successful business. But I started doing the books for that family business when I was 13. I didn't know that wasn't normal until I got to college. Now I tell my parents that was child labor. It totally was. But what I learned in that small business is when I had to decide who to pay, what to pay, and when to pay it. When businesses are hurting, you stretch that dollar, you get creative, and you get smart. And when times are good, you don't celebrate because you know the bad times are going to happen again. That's when I learned the value of a dollar. I went on to Clemson University, go Tigers, and graduated with a degree in accounting. I'm not a lawyer, I'm an accountant. And I got out of school, worked for a corporation, and then I went home to the family business. And one day I was sitting down with my mom, telling her about how hard it was to make a dollar and how easy it was for government to take it. And my mom said, quit complaining about it, do something about it. I did not know you weren't supposed to run against a 30-year incumbent in a primary. But ignorance is bliss, and I ran against the longest-serving legislator in the state. And what I did was my husband got in the driver's seat, I got in the passenger seat, we put our two little ones in the back seat, and I started knocking on doors. And I said, this is no disrespect to the incumbent, but I think we have way too many lawyers in the State House, and they just need a really good accountant. So the people of Lexington County gave me that opportunity. I went on to the State House. I got to work. And after a couple of years, we had a Republican House, Republican Senate, Republican governor. And after a couple of years, I noticed that every time we had bills across the desk in South Carolina, the way you handled it was all in favor, say aye, all opposed, nay. The ayes have it. But one day, the legislature sent a bill across the desk that would give legislators a pay raise. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, silence. The ayes had it. Yet to this day, you can't find one of those legislators that said they voted themselves a pay raise. I got really upset, and I went to the Speaker of the House, the Republican Speaker to the House, and I said, this is why people don't trust us. And I sponsored a bill that said anything important enough to be debated on the floor of the House or the Senate is important enough to have a record on the vote for constituents to see. And the Speaker of the House said, put the bill away. We don't need to have it. We will decide what the public needs to see and what they don't. I went home to my husband and I said, if I can't even get legislative votes on the record, what am I doing here? And he said, then fight. I went across the state of South Carolina and I said, did you know of all the bills passed in the House, only 8% were on the record? Did you know of all the bills that were passed in the Senate, only 1% was on the record? So if you didn't know how your House member voted 92% of the time, and you didn't know how your senator voted 99% of the time, how did you know who to vote for when you went to the polls? And the people of South Carolina were shocked. Now, to put this into perspective, my first year in office, I was chairman of the freshman class. My second year, I was named majority whip. My third year, I was put on a powerful business committee. And my fourth year, I was subcommittee chair of banking. The year that I raised hell about having legislators vote on the record, the year that I refused to put the bill away, They stripped me of everything. I lost every assignment. I could take the well, nobody would listen. I could sponsor a bill, nobody would co-sponsor it with me. So I ran for governor. And I am proud to say one of the first bills that I signed when I won the governorship was that now in South Carolina, everything debated on the floor of the House or the Senate requires a vote on the record. And the account at me, we took it a step further. We did it on every section of the budget. And when I signed the bill, I signed it blasting it in the State House with Pat Benatar saying, "Hit me with your best shot." So I become governor, and our state is hurting. We had double-digit unemployment. All of our jobs had gone overseas from the textile basket, so we didn't have any manufacturing that was of significance. And I knew that if you give a person a job, you take care of a family. And we had a lot of families to take care of in South Carolina. So we got to work. We told every agency, if you are costing a person or a business time, you're costing them money, and that's no longer acceptable in South Carolina. We made sure that they understood that everybody, I required all state employees to answer the phone. "It's a great day in South Carolina. How may I help you?" They hated that. They hated that. But the point was, I wanted them to remember they worked for the person on the other side of the line, not the other way around. And we got to work. We said that we needed to have voter ID in South Carolina. This was back in 2012. 2012, and I was vilified for it. The media went crazy. They said I was disenfranchising voters. And I said, you know what? If you've got to show an ID to buy Sudafed, if you've got to show a picture ID to get on a plane, why would you not show picture ID to protect the integrity of the election process? I said, but I hear you. I hear you. If you think I'm disenfranchising voters, then this is what we'll do. Anybody that needs to get an ID, I will take them to the DMV, we will give them a free ID, and we will return them home safely. Out of 5 million people in South Carolina, do you know how many people asked for a ride? 25. We passed voter ID in South Carolina. We now have more people voting than ever before. That's the way it should be in South Carolina. We also had an illegal immigration problem at that time. It was not at the level that we have today. And we took care of that too. We put E-Verify in South Carolina, which basically said no one could hire anyone without proving that they were legal in our country. And we said we are going to make sure that our businesses only hire legal immigrants. We would not hire illegal immigrants. And we passed E-Verify in South Carolina. And then we sold South Carolina and we brought manufacturing in. We were #1 in foreign investment. We were known as the beast of the Southeast. By the time I left, we were building planes with Boeing. We had recruited Mercedes-Benz. We had recruited Volvo. We had 5 international tire companies. And our unemployment level hit a 15-year low, and at, I think, 3.84%. It goes to show that when government works for you, then everybody benefits. Then I got a call from President Trump, and he asked if I would be the ambassador to the United Nations. And the first thing I said is, I don't even know what the United Nations does. I just know everybody hates it. But then I said, okay, I'll do it, but on a couple of conditions. I said, one, it has to be, I'm a governor. I don't want to work for anybody else. I want to work directly with you. So it has to be a cabinet position. He said, done. I said, well, I'm a policy girl, so I'd want to be on the National Security Council when decisions are made. He said, done. And I said, well, I'm not going to be a wallflower or a talking head. I need to be able to say what I think. And he said, Nikki, that's why I want you to do this. And he was true to his word from the first day to the last day. When I went to the United Nations, I purposely didn't learn the do's and don'ts of the United Nations. I wanted to go in there with fresh eyes. I wanted to go in there and break it and make sure that we built it back up to what it needed to be. I told them that I needed to prove that the United Nations was worth the investment of the American people. It's not, by the way, it's not. But what we did was we said we're going to have the backs of our allies, and if you are in any way trying to stab the back of the United States, we're going to take names. And we did. We started taking names. We made sure that we held people to account. We made sure we passed the largest sanctions in a generation against North Korea. We held China to account. We made sure that we got out of the Iran deal and stopped supporting a group that was saying death to America every day. Bottom line, I went in there and took the kick me sign off our backs. And finally, we made sure that America was respected again. I didn't care if any of them liked me, but I wanted them to respect America. And I made sure they knew what we were for and what we were against, and that there was no gray. But one day, when we pushed, and there was a vote of why the United States moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, the United Nations condemned America. And what I said at the time is, the United States can put our embassy anywhere we choose. We always put it in the capital of every country. Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, so we were acknowledging a truth. But they condemned us, and then it went to a vote of all 193 countries. And after that vote, we actually had 68 countries that didn't vote against us, which, believe it or not, that was a win. I went back to my office and I told my staff, I said, I want you to put a book together for me. I want the book to have all 193 countries listed. I want the second column to show the percentage of times they voted with the United States and against the United States. And then I said, I want the last column to show how much foreign aid we give them. I took that book and I gave it to President Trump. He lost his mind, right? He totally lost his mind. And I said, I'm not giving you this to say we should give foreign aid based on a percentage vote or not. But what I'm saying is, we will never buy friends. We need to stop in America trying to buy friends. You can't go and convince someone that's saying death to America every day by throwing money at them. They're always going to say death to America. We were giving $1 billion in military aid to Pakistan. They were turning around and harboring terrorists trying to kill our soldiers. We stopped giving that $1 billion to Pakistan. Everything I've ever done, I've pushed against the status quo. Everything I've ever done, I've tried to fight for transparency, fight for Americans to know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we can fix it. And everything we've ever done, it's how do we lift up everybody? Not just a select few. How do we lift up everybody? And I look at our country now, and I'm hurt. I'm hurt because for the first time, parents don't think their kids are going to live a better life than we are. You look at the economy, we're $31 trillion in debt. We're borrowing money just to make our interest payments. We're on this spending addiction, and DC strongly needs to go on a diet. You've got this massive amount of inflation. Do you know why we have it? Because if you constantly put out stimulus packages that give people money to sit on the couch, guess what? They're going to do it. And that's what happened. So spending bill after spending bill. even though we've seen tons, we've literally billions of dollars in fraud from COVID, from the COVID money, you have that aspect. But you see this debt and you see all this conversation, and this is affecting real people. You've got real families that can't afford to buy groceries. 1 in 6 people can't afford to pay their utility payment. 60% of Americans are in credit card debt. 30% of small businesses didn't pay their rent, couldn't pay their rent in October. That's not okay. And at some point, DC needs to understand the value of a dollar. I've never been in DC, but I think they need a really good accountant. I'm just saying. Then you go and you look at our education system. And this one is painful. Pre-COVID, 70% of our 8th graders are not proficient in reading in this country. 66% of 8th graders are not proficient in math in this country, and that was pre-COVID. Then you turn around and you close schools and you mask kids and they lose time. And now you've got parents who are desperately struggling because our kids have lost so much in education, we don't know how to make them back up. Think about that. And through all of that, when we should be doing everything we can to get our kids back at top pace, what are we doing? We're talking about critical race theory, where if a 5-year-old girl goes into kindergarten, if she's white, you're telling her she's bad, and if she's brown or black, you're telling her she's never going to be good enough and she's always going to be a victim? That's abusive. You look at the fact that here they're trying to talk about gender in schools. You know, there was all this talk about the Florida bill, the Don't Say Gay bill. Basically what it said was you shouldn't be able to talk about gender before 3rd grade. I'm sorry, I don't think that goes far enough. When I was in school, you didn't have sex ed until 7th grade. And even then, your parents had to sign whether you could take the class, and my dad wouldn't sign the thing. So I was the uncool kid in the back classroom that couldn't take sex ed. That's a decision for parents to make. That's not a decision for schools to make. And then you look at the safety situation. Look at all the crime. And this is true street crime that we're seeing in our cities. You look at that and you're saying this is what happened if you don't have the backs of law enforcement. And you look at a border, we've never had a border this open. And here, Biden basically broke everything that we attempted to do to fix. And you've got literally thousands by the day pouring in and no one doing anything to stop it. And then you look at the foreign policy situation. And that doesn't even count the drugs, by the way. And you know everything we need to know about drugs because every family in America knows someone, has felt someone that has suffered from what's happening. We had enough fentanyl cross that border last year that would kill every single American. Nothing about that is okay. And no one is calling China out for the fact that China's the one that's sending it over the border. And you look at our foreign policy situation, and that's exactly right. Thank you. What foreign policy situation? Here you see Afghanistan fall. And as a true patriot like General Bolduc, it was painful to see my husband and those people who went and spent time over there, risked their lives over there. And what we're watching is, after all of this, you literally had the United States leave Bagram Air Force Base in the middle of the night without telling any of our allies who stood shoulder to shoulder with us for decades because we asked them to be there. Think about what that told our allies. More importantly, think about what that told our enemies. And then you've got Biden falling all over himself to get back into an Iran deal where they say death to America. You've got North Korea shooting off more missiles this year than they ever have before. And you've got China on the march. And China is eating our lunch right now. The idea that Americans would look to the sky and see a Chinese spy balloon flying over us is nothing more than a massive national embarrassment. So what do we do to fix it, right? Because we can talk about the problems all day, but it's time to stop talking about the problems and start fixing it. First of all, with our economy and what it means with inflation, stop the spending binge. I don't care what they say, stop it. We do it in our households, we do it in our small businesses. We balanced a budget in South Carolina as governor. There's no reason DC can't figure out how to balance a budget. Republicans and Democrats opened back up earmarks. Do you want to know how ridiculous the earmarks? $12 million on a baseball field in New York, $15 million on New Jersey to get the World Cup, $6.5 million for golf courses in Colorado. That is not the way we want our taxpayer dollars spent. We need to stop earmarks altogether. %15% of our budget, our federal budget, is going to pay interest. Don't you think that's enough to say, let's stop borrowing money? Stop borrowing. If you're borrowing money, you stop the spending so that we don't borrow. That's another way that we need to fix it. The third thing we need to do is understand that we have inflation because of the supply chain. So if you've got inflation from a supply chain, what do? The first thing we need to do is start manufacturing things in America. The days of depending on enemies for our national security items has to be over. Biden was very quick to talk about COVID, and he was really quick to say, put your mask on. You turned it over, the mask was made in China. He was very quick to say, take your test, make sure you take your COVID test. If you turned it over, it was made in China. And guess what? If we ever have a national emergency, most of our medications go through China. Are we crazy? We need to stop that. And you know what? If we can't manufacture it in America, let's manufacture it with our friends. Go to Japan, go to India, go to Australia. They all are giving themselves money to become less dependent on China. Let's make sure we're doing the same thing. So all of those things, if we do those things, but the last thing to fix our economy and fix inflation is open up the energy sector. Open up the energy sector. Don't buy dirty oil from Venezuela. We've got producers ready to go. We should be exporting as much liquefied natural gas as we can. You feel it in your utility bills. Why are they putting the pain on us? We shouldn't have to sit there and have gas prices going up the way they are. So that's how we need to start taking on our economy, the inflation, and start understanding the value of a dollar and respect that it's a taxpayer dollar that's being spent. When it comes to education, we need to make sure that every child, regardless of where they're born and raised, earns a good education. And you know how that happens? When you let parents decide where their children are going to go to school. Parents know best what their kids need, and every child doesn't fit in the same school. We have to make sure, everything okay back there? Okay. Okay. We have to make sure that we are doing everything we can for our kids. In South Carolina, we made sure that if a child couldn't read by 3rd grade, we did not pass them. We held them back. We did remediation. We had the parents included. We did summer reading programs, and we made sure that we took care of that, because if a child can't read in 3rd grade, they're 4 times less likely to graduate high school. So let's start there. Higher education is too expensive. We don't need to be sitting there telling every child they need to go to college. We need to have trades that we do. In South Carolina, all those manufacturing jobs, when those companies came in, I went and I said, let us train the workers. I want you to hire South Carolinians. We trained them in our trade schools, and I said, you can interview and decide. Out of everybody we trained in all of those, from building planes to building cars, those companies hired 97% of our people. That can happen in America. And then we want to look at safety. Now, this is the most common sense of all. First, stop saying defund the police. Second, have the backs of your law enforcement and pay them like they deserve to be paid. Actually go to the border and talk to our Border Patrol and say, what do you need? And secure the border. Secure the border. The fabric of America is legal immigration. Our country is good for legal immigrants, from the talent to the culture and everything else. But we don't wave a flag and say, come. The way the proper legal immigration happens, which Biden is falling away from, is if someone wants to come to this country, they have to be sponsored by someone who will promise that they don't go on the government dime. That always needs to be the case. The second thing is, when we bring people over, do it based on merit. We need to make sure we need people for jobs that Americans aren't doing. My farmers in South Carolina, if they can't find somebody to do it, that's when you do it. But there's a process, and we need that process to work, and it's not happening now. But we don't put Americans at risk by turning around and hurting our national security. And I do think E-Verify needs to be the law of the land, not just South Carolina. And then when it comes to foreign policy, the number one threat we have is China. Republicans and Democrats for too long thought that if we were nice to China, they'd want to be like us. That's narcissistic. They don't want to be like us. They want to be communists. China sees the West as if we're the great sinners, and they are determined to take over. We've got some serious work to do. And the first thing you do is they no longer should be able to buy any land in America, period. They bought 350,000 acres recently by Grand Forks Air Force Base in North Dakota. Guess what? That's where our most sensitive drone equipment is. We have to make sure that they're not doing that. The second thing is we have to stop letting them steal our intellectual property. They've done it for too long. No one's done anything to hold them accountable. We need to make sure they no longer can put any funding in our colleges, or else our colleges get no money if they want to take Chinese money. We need to secure our research and development, know exactly who is in there. And we need to strengthen our military. The one thing that fears China and Russia more is us having a strong military. We need to build it back up. We need to make sure we modernize it. We need to also make sure that they're not wasting, because Department of Defense does know how to waste money too. But we need to make sure that we're strong. And when you do that, a strong military doesn't start wars. A strong military prevents wars. That's what we need to be doing. But of all the threats we have, the one that really bothers me is we have this national self-loathing that has taken over our country. People saying that America's bad, that it's rotten, that it's racist. America is not racist. This is coming from the first minority female governor elected in the country. America is not a racist country. It's not. We have to get our kids to love America like we do. We have to get our kids to understand that we are in the best country in the world. Are we perfect? No. But the principles at the heart of America are perfect. And our job should to be continuing to improve it every day. And I will tell you, if we're going to do this, if we're going to really change to where we start to love our country again, we've got to do some serious work. The serious work starts with the fact that we don't do it with faint hearts or watered down compromises. We do it by boldly understanding the purpose of America and getting others to join us. That's hugely important. We need to add people to our cause. Our cause is right. But I will say this to our Republicans in the room. We've lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. That means Republicans are doing something wrong. We should not be okay with that. We should want to win the majority of Americans because our solutions are the right ones. But if we're going to do it, we have to stop leaning on the status quo of the past. We've got to stop talking about old issues, and we need to start looking forward. We need to start saying, this is what we're going to do. And the way you do that is you put term limits in Congress. You do mental competency tests for anyone over the age of 75. We start focusing on new generational leadership, and the best way to do that is to put a badass woman in the White House. I'm just saying.
Woo-hoo! That's what I'm talking about.
Look, in all seriousness, we can do this. And the reason we can do this is you deserve better. You deserve better. Your families deserve better. Your kids deserve better. This isn't the country we know. This isn't the country we grew up in. This isn't the way it was. We grew up with love and faith. We grew up with patriotism. We grew up with understanding that our children could ride their bikes down the street and you didn't worry. You didn't lock your doors. We grew up understanding that America was the best, most moral country in the world. And we never stopped praying to God, thank you. We never did. So our road forward is no more complaining about it. We're going to do something about it. We've done enough complaining. This country's been through a lot. Aren't you tired? But what we are going to do is we're going to get on the road to fix it. And the way we're going to get on the road to fix it is I need every one of you, brothers and sisters, to understand we can do this together. I need every one of you to understand that I don't care if they underestimate me, because that's always fun. They said I couldn't win when I ran up against a 30-year incumbent, and I did. When I ran for governor, what I didn't tell you was I ran against a lieutenant governor, a congressman, an attorney general, and a state senator, and I was Nikki who? Nobody had heard of me. But we worked hard, and we won. When I went to the United Nations, they said, she doesn't have experience. She can't do it. And I went there, and I got to work. I am willing to fight for you. I need you to be willing to fight for you. I need you to want it as bad as I want it. I need you to understand that our best days are ahead of us. I have faith. I believe it. But it's going to take all of us to do it. And I'm telling me, if you will join me with me, if you will go tell 10 people, we will start a movement that will create the best days America has ever seen. God bless you. I appreciate it very much.
Use it for questions.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's very nice. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's great. Thank you. So I'm not going to have you just come here and listen to me. I am going to open it up for any questions that you have. There's nothing I won't answer. Just don't get mad if you don't like my answer. So who wants to ask the first question? Go ahead and ask it right here. He's got it.
Hi, my name is Zach. Thank you so much for coming out here today. So personally, I am very concerned about the destabilization of Iran. As they're becoming less and less stable, they're inching closer and closer to getting the bomb. First, I want to thank you for being the bravest politician to stand up to Iran. You're someone I look up to tremendously for that. So as someone who's deeply concerned for the security of America, as a Jew concerned for Israel, how far will you go and what will you do to keep the bomb out of Iran's hand?
You know, the interesting thing is there is no compromising with a country that says death to America. This is a terrorist regime who has literally, we've watched them stomp all over their people. The Iranians don't want this. It's the regime that's doing this. And what we have to do is not give an inch. When we got out of the Iran deal, what Obama did was he thought, maybe if we send them money, they'll stop. Cultures and terrorist groups like that don't stop. So what they did was they gave them 2 planes of money. I used to say a plane full of money, and then the media fact-checked me, and they said, she's wrong, she's lying, because it's 2 planes of money. So we sent them 2 planes of money, and all it did was fuel their terrorist activity. All of a sudden, they were doing more terrorism in Gaza. They were doing it in Lebanon, with Hezbollah. They were all over in Afghanistan and Syria. We saw them putting their terrorist tentacles everywhere. They cannot get any money. What they want is to go back into the Iran deal. What Biden has done is fall all over himself. We can't do it. Hands down, if you have a strong government, if you have a strong America, they will be too scared to do anything. That's the thing, is you don't cave to these people. You let them know what we expect of them. And what we expect of them is they are not going to get a bomb, and we should never let them get a bomb. And we should do whatever it takes to protect that. And once they realize we take their money and we strip all their cash away, then it happens. Right now, Iran's getting money. You know how? Their biggest exporter, China. All of this comes back to China. When we finally deal with China, so much of this will be taken care of. And it won't happen overnight, but we need to start. And when we do that, that's when we teach these regimes a lesson.
Please address the Second Amendment.
So I am a concealed weapons permit holder myself. This is the thing. First of all, I strongly believe that people who want to defend themselves should be able to defend themselves. Hands down, it's what we should always allow. But that doesn't mean we don't have a problem. And you can look in any city from DC to Philly to New York City, and you are seeing terrible crime on our streets. But understand, when you have street crime like that, there are things that we can do about it. Guess what? The first thing you do is you let police do their job. You arrest people who do bad things. You have DAs that actually prosecute them and don't turn around and put them back out on the streets. The second thing you do is we protect those that we love. And how do we do that? If you have a child that goes to school, you should never worry something's going to happen in our schools. What we need to do is be smart. You should have one entry into a school, and that's it. You should have a security guard at every school, and that's it. And you should not just have a guidance counselor. You should have a mental health consultant that works in that school every day, all day, because that's an issue. What no one has talked about, what's never gotten its day in America, is mental health. One in 4 people have a mental health issue. So look around. But if treated, you can live a perfectly normal life. That's the thing, is treatment. There's nothing wrong. We need to treat people. And what you have to do is, when law enforcement sees that there's people that have mental health issues, don't throw them in jail for 72 hours and put them right back out. Do what we did in South Carolina and have a telemedicine call and get them some help. Let them know how we can help them. We have to start addressing that. But what I will tell you is, we don't take away guns from good people because of bad people who have guns. They're always going to find their way to get guns. But if they're scared because law enforcement's going to enforce the law, if they're scared because somebody's sitting behind them having dinner and they've got a gun on them, that's how you stop crime, is when you let people protect themselves and you let law enforcement do their job.
Hold on, Ambassador. What would you do about Ukraine?
So the question is about Ukraine. So I know there's been some conversations about Ukraine. This is what I'll tell you. First of all, it has been absolutely inspiring to watch what Ukrainians have gone through. The idea that these people wanted freedom so much that the men left their wives and children and went and fought for their country. That the women said, I'm not going to stand here and not do anything, and they made Molotov cocktails to help. The idea that they loved their country that much. We used to be that. That used to be us. So this war with Ukraine, it's not a war about Ukraine. This is about a war on freedom. And it's a war we have to win. Because if Russia takes Ukraine, they've said Poland and the Baltics are next, and we're looking at a world war. And if Russia wins, you can bet China's going to take Taiwan, Iran's going to get the bomb, and North Korea's going to have a field day. If they lose, it tells every dictator and enemy of the West, don't mess with us. That's the key we have to do. Now, what does that mean? That does not mean we send troops. It does not mean we write blank checks. What it means is we get together with those NATO countries and we say, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And we all make sure they have the equipment and the ammunition to win that for themselves. That's what we do when it comes to Ukraine. So there are, do you see?
We have time for one more question, ma'am.
Okay.
Oh, I'm going to stand up. Ed Preby from Franklin, New Hampshire, the poor community. We have a hard time educating our kids and our schools because we're a poor community. It's a mill town that the mills are long gone.
Yep.
Now I'm 72 years of age and I had to go back to work full time to keep what little I have. I don't have a Mercedes-Benz or a Tesla sitting in my parking lot. I have a beat-up Chevy pickup and a Volkswagen. And here's where I need help from you. I will vote for you, and I will declare this now in front of everybody in this room. And we need to do that. We need to do that. Don, I voted for you, and I campaigned for you. I need one of those signs before I leave tonight so I can put that on my front lawn in Franklin, New Hampshire, and proud to do it. I will support you. At age 72, if you would ask me to put the uniform back on in the Marine Corps in '69, I'll do it just to protect you and Don. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ed, now it's time for you to feel like government's working for you, not the other way around. It's been too long. God bless you, because what you're saying is right. I grew up in a town where we didn't know what we didn't have. And it was neighbors taking care of neighbors. And that's what we have to go back to. But what we don't need is government hurting us along the way. I want to leave this with one story. I've been around the world and back, and I've seen a lot of things that are hard to see. But one in particular, I was standing on the Simon Bolivar Bridge in South America, where people were walking from Venezuela to Colombia by the thousands. They were holding their children in the hot sun just to get the one meal they might get that day. They had been killing zoo animals for food. They were fleeing socialism and yearning for freedom. When we got to this area where they were getting food, it was a Catholic church. All of these people started coming around towards me. And I thought, why are they coming to me when they don't know who I am? And then it hit me. They didn't care who I was. They cared where I was from. And in me, they saw America. And in America, they saw hope. That's what we're going to get back again. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you, Exeter.